Alright, it says we're fucking live on the rest of those sites, but we're gonna verify. I'm looking at that and I don't understand why it always says a logo in the beginning. I don't know. Alright, we're good. Well, shit, we're gonna finish up this interview with this dude. Lieutenant General guy, Air Force. And some theories. But we are gonna be going to Shoreline though. I'm gonna plant this bad boy. And plant this one too. Kind of a sketchy fucking task. But it's so late in the wipe though, I don't think I'm gonna get sniped in the head. But there's always a possibility though. Alright, Shoreline. We need to go to weather. Top of West Wing. Just locate, we don't have to actually play anything. Hit up the ambulance. 1 by admin, 2 by tunnel. So we'll probably extract over a tunnel. We need to go to the swamp, 3 houses, which I want to say I have all 3 of those memorized. It's the third time I'm doing this fucking wipe. And I've done it every other wipe too. Maybe besides my first half wipe. Which is a lot of fucking wipes. And, yep, then we'll go plant the SV98 and Leatherman. Yeah, I got down to 59 rubles in my stash, so I separated all my found and raid shit that I need for the hideout over here, even though I probably don't need this much of these particular items, and just the normal shit. I think for the Kappa items too, I'm going to start putting some of the shit off to the side that I know I'm going to need for quests later, and Kappa too specifically. I was looking at the price tag for that streamer junk box, the purple one, and in order for me to get, I want to say it was like 27 fucking cameras. I don't even have that shit unlocked euro-wise. But if I did, no, I was just coming up with a price tag based on these motherfuckers that are selling the shit at like a markup basically. But it's gonna cost me like 1.3 million rubles to plant 27 fucking cameras on customs or something like that. There's a reason why I didn't do that task for either Kappas. But we might end up doing it again. Or I just bite the fucking bullet and just do what I was doing previously, is just buy a 5th junk box and leave it for streamer items plus items for my hideout, which honestly that probably makes more sense. Alright. We're probably gonna go daytime. Let's see. I did put a scope on. I had a little holographic on, and fuck that. Not on this map, at least. The music's too loud.
Secret, they will be able to know it almost immediately, so there are no secrets, and yet the people that have this quantum capability can have the Fort Knox of security. Okay, but for that quantum computation that can do all of this and turn AI into a super tool for humanity, you need to cool that quantum computer down to much less than 1 Kelvin, which is almost to the point where molecules no longer move at all, absolute zero. The best we can do right now with any form of efficiency is a hydrogen cooling technique, but it only gets you down to about 1 Kelvin, and you've got to get down to about 80 millikelvin. The only known way of cooling something to that level is helium-3. So now think about this. China is mining helium-3 on the moon, which is abundant and could supply the energy needs of the human race for thousands of years, just with what we know is on the moon right now. Not to mention what's on asteroids and anywhere where there's a celestial body that does not have an atmosphere that prevents it from getting through onto the Earth. So we have some helium-3 on Earth, but very little, and that's why it's millions of dollars for just an ounce. But on the moon, you've got enough to fuel the entire human race for thousands of years. That's kind of giving you a different. If China can cool their quantum computers with helium-3 before we can, the jig is up. This is part of the power of space, translated into something tangible and operational called quantum. So that's quantum computing. which would make all secrets null and void.
I can only sit in my fucking chair crisscross applesauce for like 10 minutes. It is really comfortable, but I don't know. I'm not that stretchy or flexible.
Which might not be a bad thing, because then only people that don't need to keep secrets are the ones revealed, and evil can't hide. This is where this technology can be good or it can be bad, as long as the human heart is good, and the majority of people that dominate these technologies have a good heart and love their God and love other people like God loves them. We have a pathway to the golden age. If only evil people develop these technologies, like if Hitler were first for the atomic bomb, we would probably all be speaking German right now, and it would be a very different reality. So let's get to the most interesting of the quantum technologies that we've observed, and that is quantum communication.
Is this quantum entanglement?
Yes. Okay. And this is what I think he was referring to when he talks about time and space. Here's what we observe, and I'll just talk about what we observe in full knowledge that I'm no expert, but I read a lot and I am friends with people that are experts. When we observe quantum communication, not only when you entangle two elements, meaning that this particle is associated with this particle, when one moves, the other moves instantaneously, regardless of the distance apart. So that blows out of the water, the speed of light is as fast as you can move. It shows that our universe is connected in ways we cannot see, we do not understand. And there's a trilogy of books out there that you ought to read. One of the most storytellers, like Roddenberry with the Star Trek, they are good at looking at the trend lines of technology and being able to predict the outcome of what that might mean as engineers and scientists actually develop it. So in the 60s, in Star Trek, you had the communicator, which was our current day flip phone. Okay, they hadn't gone far as a smartphone, but the communicator was pretty darn good for Roddenberry. There is a Chinese fiction writer that wrote a trilogy called The Three Body Problem. Now, you may have heard about it, but you probably haven't read it, because it's 3 books and they can be pretty dense. But anybody that is interested in how technology can change fate ought to read those books, because this is a man that has studied quantum.
I picked up those 3 books. Fuck, dude, it was a while back. It could have been like 5 years ago. It was before my deployment, in case I needed something to do, something to read. So I brought those 3 books with me, and honestly, I think I only read like half of the first one. I didn't get much further, though. I still have the books. They're in my fucking living room, in the little cubbies or whatever, but I think there's a TV show about it now, too. I did watch the TV show. I just haven't been into reading in a fucking minute, unless it's like homework related.
And has described a future of people that live in other parts of the universe, so far away from us that we have no clue they're there. And how their knowledge of quantum allows them to come to us, and they're coming to us because they see something in our Earth, in our civilization, that is so magical and so beautiful that they want it, and they want it at the price tag of our existence. Okay, but it's a story of technology. It's a story that describes what quantum can do based on our observations, and so this gets us back to quantum communication, where 2 elements can be intimately connected such that one moves, the other moves.
So, do you mind if I just interject here? So I did a little bit of research on this, and the way that I understand it is that if you split an atom, and it doesn't matter the distance that the 2 halves are. It could be, like you're saying, a whole other part of the universe. It could be from US to Japan. It could be anywhere. But if you put a vibration on one of those halves of the atom, then no matter where the other part of the atom is, it will mimic the exact same vibration.
Yes.
And we're able to communicate that way.
That's right. But here's the other part of it that is so fascinating and gets to the time travel.
Fucking
so it's not
Morse
just
code.
that you can communicate that way, but that if the communication is observed by a third party, it will rewrite history, and it will never have happened.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so this is where your audience needs to do their own reading, okay, because I'm not an expert, but the experts have documented and proven that quantum communication has certain qualities to it that we don't understand. One of them is the one you just talked about, where the vibration of one is identical and simultaneous to the other, no matter how far apart they are. We don't know why or how, but we know it's true, and we know how to manipulate that to communicate, okay? We know how to.
We don't understand the connection.
We don't understand the connection, okay? But the other piece of it is that if you communicate and somebody observes it and you didn't want it to be observed, it disappears, meaning it never happened. And when you go back and you look, the evidence does not exist that it ever happened.
Say that again?
Yeah, I know it's a mind bender, okay? If quantum communication, and again, I want to be very careful that I'm not the expert, okay? So you need to read the literature yourself. And
Fucking work time, baby. We're probably going to stay to the edges of the map. Alright, we'll do the 2 ambulance, and we'll do the 3 houses. fuck it, we're gonna go left. I feel like I'm gonna run into a spawn though. We got BT inside here. We'll probably do a little bit of looting, allow the resort boys to get up over there, so I'm not having to fight them out here in the open. I got movement out here. Scabby boys. I don't know if that key's worth a lot. I don't think it is. It's probably like 40k. I honestly don't do a lot of looting over here. I'm not entirely sure where all the spawns are, to be honest. Fucking dope. I did a scav earlier. I think it was the only raid I did. I did one scav on interchange trying to find some corrugated hoses or whatever those are called. I need 3 for my hideout. I don't remember exactly what for. Man came to the wrong fucking neighborhood over here, dude. We'll see if he's got a boyfriend. He's thick. But he was doing that task where you gotta get the Untar kills or whatever. I'm just a little surprised he didn't hear me, though. This wood is loud as fuck. Well, I think we're just gonna go loot his fucking body. I think I've cleared out enough. I don't think he has a boyfriend. Those homeboys posted up far as fuck away. Yeah. He's doing his task. we're gonna go hit up the houses, and then we'll probably backtrack and go plant the SV98. Alright, we might actually extract. We found 2 of these fucking corrugated hoses. That might be more of a priority. I have to walk up to this house over here too. Fucking bag is making me such a big target too, being out in the open. It's one of these 2 houses. I don't remember which one it is. I have a feeling like it's this one right here, to be honest. I'm not 100%.
And the peer-reviewed documents on some of the experiments that have taken place with quantum communication. But it literally can rewrite history. If it does not want to be seen, if it does not want it to be discovered, it is not discoverable. And so I say it rewrites history. I don't know how it does that, and I don't think anybody does. But we have observed it. That if it's observed, it disappears, and it's like it never happened. So again, I don't know, but God has created a universe where these things could happen. And like the caveman that sees the first lightning that starts a fire, we are on a race to figure out how we can harness this reality of our physical universe. And it could mean that future generations of people come back to us in time travel. It could mean, like in the 3-body problem, where the people that are hundreds of millions of light years away can communicate to individuals like you or me through our brainwaves and even our eyeballs and what we can see because of the ability to manipulate at a molecular level across distances that are infinite. Who knows how God has created this universe? But for me, it is the evidence of God and how little we know. But that God has given us a brain so powerful that scientists and engineers have figured out that this happens, that it exists.
Wow.
And the only question is, how do we use it to love one another better and to love God better? Because
Oh my god. Check it out. Check it out. This fucking key. 188. He's getting close to Kappa. Because I literally did that task on both ones maybe like a week before I had Kappa. We're not going to bring this bag in. Alright, let's start doing teammates. I don't know why it said subtask completed with nostalgia. I don't really know. Drink.
ultimately, that's our only purpose in life, in my view, is to glorify God. How do we use this knowledge God has given us to glorify God and not let evil people use it as a weapon against good people? This is why we as a nation need to invest in technology. This is why we need to be able to build infrastructure in space less expensively than our competition, because this is about the forever game. This is about the endurance of an economy that can do more capable things at lower price points than our competition. And this is why I focus on water and on the infrastructure of space that can deliver energy and information. But ultimately, information is the best. If we got rid of every piece of technology, it comes back to telling stories and triangulating truth by talking to a lot of people and figuring out who is deceiving you because they're deceived themselves and where the truth lies. Experimenting, critical thinking, teaching our children how to ask questions, how to be suspicious in a healthy way, how to be critical at thinking through logical things. And then if we can do that, if we can focus on an interior life that increases our relationship with God and our goodness as a human being, and we can understand how technology is something God has given us as a gift to help bring about more goodness, we can, as a human race, usher in a golden age. Someday somebody will figure out technology that will then make that irrelevant. But I'm here to tell you that the industrial age of many of the technologies we celebrate, rightfully so, like the fighter jet or the tank or the ship, are very quickly becoming artifacts of a museum. We can't stop building them until we have a firm grasp on the future, but we are not sufficiently investing in some of these future technologies that we can see the beginnings of, and that we have a race that's on with other societies that see it, and they are investing billions and we are investing millions. And thank God for President Trump, because he is correcting that economic imbalance. And he's doing it through the brilliance of negotiating and the trade deals and the investment in things that are classified and unclassified, in the declassification of things so the American people can see more of what's going on. There are so many layers of this awakening for the global community that President Trump is ushering in that I just beg that everybody, whether you are no matter what your geopolitics are or the politics you prescribe to, start reading, start learning, because the world is about to change in ways that are more dramatic than the people in 1898 that rode their horse to the field and lit their home with a candle experienced over 100 years. We're going to experience changes dramatically more consequential in lightning speed, like in the next few decades. So hang on to your hats and start learning, because if you are a citizen that does not, just gets up, has a cup of coffee, goes to work, comes home, has dinner with your family, and goes to bed and rinses and repeats, and you don't study technology, you don't study history, you don't study culture, you don't study human nature, and you don't study your politicians that are making policy decisions that are inconsistent with your rights and your Constitution, then you will not hang on to this republic, just like our founding fathers said.
Thank you.
And that's what you're doing.
Thank you.
So keep doing it.
I mean, this atom, quantum entanglement, I mean, that could mean there's another you.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the exact same
thing. We don't know. I mean, we can guess and we can project. And again, some of these writers, some of our storytellers, some of our creatives are people that live on the edge of reality more so than, I consider myself dumb enough to be happy. I got the lobotomy so I can compartmentalize and I can be
Well, that was perfect timing. We might just rush to go plant my SV98 and whatnot. I don't know why that does that. Pandora and the music just randomly turns off after about like an hour's worth of listening. I've been paying for that shit for like the last 5 fucking years. Maybe even longer than that, I don't even know. I hate this quest. Uh, we're probably gonna go to weather. We'll plant my marker over there. And we'll do weather admin for the ambulance, and then we will head up top of West Wing. That would be most unfortunate if the goons were here. Oh yeah, this is just locating. Fuck. It's fine. There's a decent probability I get fucking killed. So I'm gonna run through the center, plant my mark on the ambulance, and then I'm gonna bust my ass through that fucking window and Get up to the 3rd floor, West Wing. Fuck you, scab bitch. Since when can scabs come up this? I've never seen scabs go up that metal stairwell. It's definitely new. That was a PMC. It's the fucking sniper scab, dude.
Happy, even though a lot of crap is happening in our world, okay? But there are people, these geniuses, and many of them are storytellers in Hollywood and other places, that can see more clearly the consequences of these technologies, and the stories they write today will be our future of tomorrow. And so it is valuable to read these science fiction writers. And that's why I proposed the book, if you want to think about quantum, read The Three-Body Problem. If you want to understand AI, there's tons of them out there, but that is much more dumbed down. AI is really stupid. It is just a projection of an algorithm and the values written by the person that programmed it. And it will program itself for future problems, but it's all predicated on the database and what it is looking at to learn. And if somebody can manipulate what that learning database is, and quantum will be able to do that, it will learn exactly what our enemy wants it to learn. And now your pet will be telling you exactly what you should not do. And you'll do it because you think that pet is your best friend. You know, so AI, again, can be a disaster or it can be a blessing.
When we're talking about extraterrestrial life, you know, that's been a big topic in Congress.
Holy fucking shit. Take a look at this, boys. I thought we only did 3 tasks. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, you know what? It's probably dailies if I had to bet. Yeah, I was killing scavs. Alright. Still a decent amount of... Well, no, you don't really catch any XP for those, fortunately. We might put Shoreline on a pause and go do some crusty customs. Let's tell you what we got. Ew. I normally let my shoreline tasks like fucking stack too before I start going after it. Kind of the same with like reserve and I think lighthouse too, streets also. I don't even know what fucking task this is, to be honest. We'll do that next. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not doing fucking setup right now. I don't think I have the patience for that. We'll go plant these markers though. Maybe grab some rootskis and all that good shit. Scav kills.
Congress for about 2 years now.
Yeah.
And we see all these things that we can't explain, these things coming out of the water. I mean, what do you think of this stuff?
So I have not had any personal experiences that are like the ones that I've heard from people I love and are the most sober, honest, salt of the earth, non-exaggerating people that were ever built, that walk this planet. But they have experienced things like you're talking about. And at young ages, at old age, you know, across their lifetime, they have seen multiple manifestations of things they could not explain. And I don't have any explanation. I mean, I've experienced a lot of things in aviation at altitudes and in places across the globe that that just turned me upside down. But most of the time, it was my inner ear and the fact that your eyeballs are so powerful that I'll be on a tanker refueling over Afghanistan, and I'll feel like I'm doing a barrel roll and pulling to my death. And if I do anything about it, I'll be pulling to my death, and I have to let go of the controls, put it on autopilot, and trust the technology. And that's the only way I can save my life, because the brain and the mind can be so deceived, and we don't even realize it. This gets back to information warfare and how quickly we can be deceived by somebody weaving a narrative in their own self-interest, and we believe it, hook, line, and sinker. So back to unexplained phenomenon. I believe that there are things out there we have seen and cannot explain. And I don't know whether it's quantum, that is this peek under the tent, that it is possible someday, once we figured out how to time travel and how people could come and visit us, but also prevent us from having the evidence that they visited us, or some people that may have visited us and the artifacts of their visit are somewhere, but it is so fearful to the people that might have it that they prevent us from seeing it. So all of those things could be true. I keep an open and humble mind about the fact, when we talk about quantum, that we now see evidence that we know so little about this universe that any arrogance or pride that says I know physics or I know technology is a fool rushing in to your own demise. So I keep an open mind and a humble heart, and I believe, but in this universe, as we're transitioning from the industrial age to the information age or the digital age or the networked age, whatever you want to call it, it's important for human beings to not believe anything they hear and only half of what they see physically, not a picture, okay? And even then, start investing in more time with other human beings and talking to people from different cultures, protecting different cultures, to believe different things, eat different food, wear different clothes, celebrate the differences, because as a human race, that is our lifeline. Talking to one another, discovering people that may be lying to you because they don't have a good heart, or they're deceived so dramatically, but triangulating truth through the human mind, the human heart, and the fact that we are communicating in a way face-to-face you cannot do over Zoom. It is not good enough. And the more we fall into this trap of not being physically together, the more we lose about the unseen connections we have with one another that God has created, and the more we can be deceived.
Well, Steve, this has been a fascinating conversation. I'd love to have you back sometime.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Appreciate that. And again, I want to come back to you and the fact that for whatever reason, you have invested in probably the most important thing that we need as a human race. And I know that you're probably also bombarded with people trying to influence what you say and what you...
This dude's smart as fuck. I thought he was initially a lieutenant colonel, but now he's lieutenant general, though. And the way to remember, like, how many stars is for each general, I was always taught, be my little general. So you got brigadier, major. Is it major? Yeah, it's major, lieutenant, and then you just have general. So 1 to 4 stars, basically. I don't even know what a 5-star would be. I don't think we've had one of those since like World War II or some nonsense.
You do, and preventing you from telling the truth, or triangulating truth, as I like to say. And so I just applaud the courage it takes, the willingness to lose some friends but make new ones, and realizing that the real battle in life is the interior battle, whether it's a marriage or your work in life. Our success really rises or falls based on the discipline and the obedience of following God's laws that are carved in our hearts. And like King Solomon, the wisest man in the world that ever was or ever will be, based on what the Bible tells us. And yet he was one of the biggest disasters of a leader because he didn't understand that wisdom wasn't what he should have asked for. It was obedience to God's law. That's the real secret of success. And it starts with the interior life. So I thank you for being one of those men that is seeking for that internal truth, both within your own heart and your connection to God, and that we are moral creatures, and that, without God and this worldview that there is one God and he has made us as moral creatures, that then cascades into our beliefs, that then cascade into our values and into our politics and policies. We will never be able to defend our values, and we will never survive as a nation or as individuals. That's the key to survival, and it starts with truth.
Thank you. That's what runs it.
Yep.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of scary times, and I think we've navigated.
It was a long fucking interview. 3-hour long interview. That last one we were watching was like 4.5 fucking hours. We haven't finished it all. Alright, we're probably just gonna do a little bit of looting and my task. So yeah. It's been a minute since I've seen that armor repair kit spawn up there. Sound like a grenade launcher. That's a grenade launcher. Fuck. I have to get back to a comfortable position. I can't play this fucking way. Holy shit, we might have movement up here. Oh god. Alright. We're gonna get comfortable and go kill whatever this is up here. Sir, this is private property. I knew I fucking heard something, dude. But it was just Scabby Boy. I don't know if that door is static open or closed. We got movement outside somewhere. I don't know where. Door's open a crack too. probably going to stay away from that side of the map. I don't want to get blown up. Try to get more comfy. Ugh. I'm moving this house. I have them come and install this fucking desk. I think next time I get a desk to be bigger. Although it's a nice desk, it's not too bad. I want to say for first Kappa. Oh God. That is pure fucking temptation right there too. The game plan probably is we're going to go mark the Tiger vehicles over by checkpoint. And we're going to backtrack to industrial, see if we can pull some scav kills over here. Yeah, that dude has fucking big pipes grenade launcher too. Somewhere over there. No, that's not good. I think I need scav kills at old gas too. I need four at old gas and 10 at industrial. feel like I fucking saw something on this side of the wall. That scared the fuck out of me, dude. I thought it was a PMC initially. We're gonna see if I can find my corrugate hose inside here. Store's supposed to be closed. Forgot I have class 5 in the front of this. It's kind of banged up though. Can't be bitching about it. We need that fucking car battery. Oh, some cheap viewers, huh? Alright, alright. Let's make a deal. Alright, we're just gonna fucking reset. That grenade launcher guy's got me kind of scared, to be honest. Alright, we'll find out what we watch next. I used to watch this guy back in the day.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. You know what? I gotta thank the big man upstairs for just looking after me here, because after Starfield Shattered Space, where I felt very robbed of my traditional Bethesda Game Studios exploration experience, normally a gamer has to go through years of agony, years of pain, years of missing that feeling, missing that high after you hit such a tremendous low. But in this year, I've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I got the Oblivion Remaster, and now I have Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. It has been raining Bethesda Game Studios style games lately, and I have been loving it, and also healing. So I'm here to tell you about Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. Now, to be transparent, the first time I did cover this video was when the game was in early access. That was also a sponsored video, but my rule with my sponsored videos is like, let me say what I want, and you can have a slot on the channel. That's how it's always worked. But nonetheless, I wanted to just be upfront and transparent about that. I have been playing the 1.0 version, paid for by me, no sponsorship, and I am like loving it. I am so surprised at how great this truly is and how much it reminds me of my favorite parts of Elder Scrolls, but also introduces new things that I really hope like Elder Scrolls 6 takes notes from. Nonetheless, if you're a BGS style fan, I think you're gonna love this jank and everything. But I've been playing it, sinking in those hours, and I cannot wait to sink in many more in a year that has been full of really surprising distractions. And best of all, add this one to the list, another $45 to $50 game. How about that? It's almost like there's a trend happening here. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Tainted Grail, Fall of Avalon. I'm really excited to put this one on your radar because the thing that upsets me the most is it's not getting a lot of media attention. So I'm trying to do my part, trying to help. So yeah, if you're new here and you're into Bethesda Game Studio style games, whether it be Elder Scrolls or a Scrolls-like, consider subscribing. Alright, so where I really want to begin before I sink into more traditional Bethesda Game Studios like content is actually where I think the game differentiates itself a lot. One of those areas is, to me at least, the combat. Now I'll say this, I am not a huge fan of Tainted Grail's melee combat. It is that finicky, bouncy, melee style combat you would find in a Bethesda Game Studio style game. But where I've really found my pocket, where I've really fallen in love with the combat, is both the character building and the magic system. The magic system especially has been both flashy and very fun as I'm mixing together like dodging and evading at the same time as shooting out spells and building up status effects. But really where it all came together for me with those two elements of character building and magic was with the summoning system. The summoning system is awesome in this game. I'm bringing in everything from corpse eaters all the way to skeletons and having them fight for me. And the way the game balances it out is when you summon these enemies in, they're going to have their own health bars that'll appear right above your own health bar. They'll also take up some of your overall mana meter. Now, opening this game up, it is a lot more difficult than, say, your average Bethesda Game Studio style game. I think a fair comparison that my buddy Lockmort made would be like first-person Elden Ring or first-person Dark Souls. Not just because, oh, it's difficult, so it's Elden Ring, but more so when you get the vibe of the universe alongside how the game isn't afraid to punish you early, it does kind of depict that almost FromSoft-inspired experience. But the power curve hits you a lot sooner, and it doesn't really let up. So what happened was when I was using the summoning originally, you'll see it in the gameplay, I just kept running out of mana. I'm like, man, I really need to figure this out. But then I found an entire Druid's Robe, and all the passive effects increased my mana regeneration. And in a complete set, it totally changed the game for me. Now I'm summoning enemies, and my mana bar is refilling so quickly that I'm just spell slinging constantly. Then I start leveling up. I put points into my spirituality, which increases my spell power. It also has skills within that skill tree that allow me to do things like increase my overall mana pool, or unlock a skill called Summoner Battery, which gives me more mana regen based on how many enemies I've summoned, and it increases the percentage with each point I put into that skill. That is where I really fell in love, because that felt like I was really picking a lane and diving deep into it. I was ignoring everything from archery to two-handed weapons to one-handed weapons. I was ignoring even different types of playstyles within the mage class, like using wands, using just separate one-handed spells. Because yes, in a very Skyrim-like move, or I guess it's out as well now, you can dual-wield spells, you can wield a melee weapon and a spell at the same time, a shield and a spell if you'd like. It does have those crazy combinations, and each of these are assigned to one of 4 weapon loadouts. So if you're like me and you're just going full mage, I was just going in between like an Ember spell and then an Ice spell and a Summoning spell, and then I ended up finding another spell that let me use my own summons to regen my health. So when I was getting attacked, I'd charge up this spell and shoot it at one of my skeletons, and I'd regenerate my own health. Or if I needed to get like, no, I need to shoot more of my spell, I just zap one of them quickly, because there's a short cast window and a long cast window depending on the spells. They'll have different effects and different usage. The short cast for what let me zap my own summons would give me my mana back as well really quickly, so I wouldn't have to wait for them to die. So it gives you like a lot of control over the battlefield, and this is just again the magic portion of the game. I personally enjoy playing as say a mage in an Elder Scrolls game, but a lot of it's like holding down and sticking out my hand and just shooting a flamethrower. And that's fine at all. Like, this isn't a video of me dogging on Elder Scrolls. There's a reason I love it, and clearly the developers love it so much that they want to make their own Scrolls-like game. But I just love how this game has leaned both into character building and a really fun magic system, where it feels like this is the best part of the gameplay experience. If I'm honest, because I also did actually mess around with a little bit of archery early on. That felt fun. That felt very BGS coded with the sneak damage and everything. But I will say this, that if you just jump into this game and you're going full melee, I wonder, and maybe it's just because I haven't dove deep into, say, the melee skills and what I can unlock there, but I do wonder if you would have as much fun on just fighting as I was. I think it's also because there was a little bit of danger. I mean, because this game, with all the summons and everything, I was taking on like high-level, early game bosses when I probably shouldn't have, because I was using my summons as like a sponge. And since enemies hit so hard, hard, if you're going full melee and you're not mastering that parry system, the game will absolutely punish you. So I think it's a lot more difficult for those of you who are out there being much tougher than me and being a melee bro. But I think the dodge system also works really well. The iframes you get for it, it's very effective where I've started to depend on it a lot. Like, oh, they're attacking me in this window, I'm gonna dodge right now and get right out of the way. And you'll see, just like in an Elder Scrolls game, as I'm using all these skills I'm talking about, that the skill meter will rise. When it rises enough, guess what? You gain that XP, you rest in a place, and you level up. Just like Oblivion. It's a beautiful thing. In fact, I think many of you watching this game are gonna kind of feel that little bit of like, damn, I've been sinking so much time into an Oblivion-like game when like the new Oblivion is right here. And so some people might be like burnt on this type of game, but for me, as someone who had their Oblivion playthrough cut short, this game is feeding me everything I wanted. So I just wanted to highlight that. I wanted to highlight the combat up front, because I do think the magic system is a ton of fun. What I also love in this game is my favorite. Exploration. Now, you can play this game in third person. I want to throw this out there. They added this late in the development cycle because a lot of their fans wanted it. So they said, like, okay, we'll do it. But when you switch over to third person, they do something I've never seen before. They say, this is an accessibility option. This is not fully polished. We added it late. Like, literally just right there, like, boom, here you go. Like, this is what's happening here. So the game was built for first person. That means its environments were built for first person. Its animations were built for first person. But if you want to just jog around the open world in third person, like, you could do that. You could fight in third person. Like, you can do everything in third person, but it's not going to look as good or probably feel as good because, again, the whole game for years was built with first person. But they treat it as an accessibility option. I think for, again, the BGS diehard who likes to explore in third person and fight in first person, you have that little niche right there that you can enjoy. Still, I just think kudos to the devs. Like, I love the energy of this team that they would do something like that. Like, yeah, this isn't going to be like fully polished, but it's going to matter to the player. And that's sort of player first mentality. I mean, as we've seen these last couple years, that matters more and more. Like, polish does matter, but the fact that they hit me with a pretty much like a warning sign right at first, I was like, okay, cool, like noted. Thank you for letting me know, and I'm just happy it's here. Not every developer's going to get that level of grace, but when you're like a small indie style team from Poland making this type of game, this ambitious of a game, like, yeah, your level of grace and give from me at least is a lot more generous compared to, I think, standard like full-on AAA productions where I'd expect those things to be more polished. Anyway, back to exploration. It's not just a camera perspective. I love how much content's in this game. It's overwhelming at first. Like, you'll get to your first town, and you'll get a million bounties, and then you'll talk to someone, they'll give you a side quest, and all these NPCs are fully voiced, varying in quality for voice acting work, as I think you'd expect for a game like this. Like, some characters sound really good. Like, when King Arthur speaks, I'm like, damn, is that Ulysses? Is that Ulysses from New Vegas? It's not, but I'm like, damn, okay. And then other characters talk like, all right, this is where you bug a little bit. Like, we need a voice for this. But overall, all of them are voiced, and they all have a lot of interesting things to say depicting the lore that I'll dive into in a little bit. But you're going to load up on quests. What I love is that this game masters something that I think like even Baldur's Gate 3 did really well, which is you go to a location for Objective A, and you don't realize lying in there is Quest B. So you're doing Objective A, and then you find someone in like this side location. For example, I went to a graveyard to learn about a necromancer, and I went to a little side crypt because I was like, oh.
We're gonna fucking do it. We're gonna go to customs and go in with the shotgun and hopefully finish up on the last of my kills in old gas, and same with industrial, and then hopefully pull a PMC or two. I'm gonna have to buy some fucking flechette rounds, and some MP153s. We'll see how it goes. This quest always like slaps the shit out of me though, so I'm not looking forward to this. Especially this late in the wipe though too.
Oh, I just want to explore this, like what's in here. Turns out it's a full dungeon, and at the end of it all is a spirit that's been collecting all these goodies and trinkets that you can dig up, and you get a lot of great loot. But basically, they've been doing this because it keeps their legend alive, and for you to continue their legend, you have to steal something for them. And it just opened up a whole quest where I was like, well, what's going on here? So I went back to the town and stole from them, and I won't spoil the rest for you, but I was like, damn, okay, like that was just a nice little distraction that pulled me away from what I was here for in the first place, and it was interesting because, again, these characters being fully voiced and just having that dialogue selection, just a lot of questions you can ask them before you actually take on the quest was really good. It's like, that's to me like RPG Dialogue 101. It's like, how many questions can I ask you? Because some games really limit it to like one or two options, but this game really lets you get like full context, just digging to these characters more and more and more. So yeah, just shout out to the exploration, shout out to the combat. It also helps that I think the game looks pretty good thanks to like its skies and just the way the music hits at the right time. Again, very Bethesda coded in that way. The music reminds me both of a From Software game, but I'd say especially like the battle music, the boss music, very Witcher 3 coded. So if you're a fan of the Witcher soundtrack, I think you will have a lot of fun with what they've cooked up here. The art style is also very different. You'll see as I'm playing in the open world, this is very like, oh, fantasy-like. Okay, cool. But then there are parts of the game that are these H.R. Geiger borderline alien rips that play into kind of the history of Avalon. I mean, that H.R. Geiger style is just iconic, of course, so it's just really cool to see it. But to find it blended into a fantasy world, I thought was a really unique approach. Even if they didn't like vary it up a lot and kind of put their own spin on it, just finding it here in this world in the early parts of the game, I was like, damn, okay, this is weird and different, and it built a little bit of intrigue. And when you mix that in again with the fantasy world and like the crypts and the creatures you're finding, it gives it its own unique blend. So far, the story is pretty interesting. I'm not so deep that I feel I can say a lot of definitive things. I know this game is broken up across 3 open maps, so what I think I'll be doing is just kind of chipping away through this on my PC and giving some thoughts once I'm done. I'd like to play it more on my Steam Deck on a side note here before I get more into the story, but it does not feel good in my opinion with a controller, and the frame rate isn't that great either, where I think if you're able to play this on PC, probably the best place to play it. The console experience I've read is a little more hit or miss, but if you like the core gameplay I'm talking about, you'll enjoy it more. But I also think it's because I started off at 60 frames, and like when I went over to my Steam Deck and had to switch from mouse and keyboard controls at 60 frames to like 30 frames and controller controls, I was like, this is I'm feeling a bit elitist here, but man, this really isn't clicking as much. So just a little word of warning on the tech front there. But when it comes to the story of Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon, this is about King Arthur discovering the land of Avalon and leading a conquest to conquer it all. And then a lot of time had basically passed. And in that time, he thinks, you know, he left the land in a brilliant spot. But obviously, when you get to Avalon, you find all this demented stuff going on and wars brewing and druids being killed en masse. Obviously, this land has fallen, right? Fall of Avalon. And so you're wondering, like, what happened here? And King Arthur is in the same spot. So as you progress through the game and you level up, you'll have these conversations at campfire with King Arthur, and it'll reflect on some of his memories he gathers. But you're also looking for shards of his being, so to say, to piece the bigger parts of the story together. Admittedly, again, part of the reason I don't know too much about the main story is because I keep getting distracted. I'm just like, I want to wander, I want to explore, and the game just lets me do that. It gives me really awesome stuff for doing it, so I'm just like all about that. But the story is interesting to open things up, which I thought was just a really good sign. Obviously, it's got a lot more life to it where I got to see where things end up, but I was happy to be like, okay, I'm actually, this isn't like a sidebar that I'm just going to do to get to like the second map. Like, I'm actually interested in what's happening here. I also noted, based off my early access experience versus the 1.0 version, there seems to be a light level of choice and consequence. I'll just say that opening up the intro area, there's a character you meet that you talk to, and depending on what answer you give them, they'll either knock you out or help you out. And in the early access,
I picked up the game yesterday too, or the day prior. I got kind of lost down in the caves where you first initially start off, and I had to lower the difficulty. I was getting my ass whooped. Might bump it up once I get a little more familiar with the controls, but yeah, we're gonna keep going through it. I think I played like 2 days ago, and then yesterday I bought Oblivion 2, so I'm playing that now, just so I'm not always playing Tarkov. But yeah, I just got outside, so I made my way through the dungeon or whatever the area is you start off in Tainted Grail.
this version, I just kind of picked one.
I was a little surprised when I bought it though. This game came out in 23. Didn't even hear about it back then, as far as I remember at least.
Ever, and I got knocked out because I really wasn't thinking too much about it. Because you know me, I always did my toe in the pool with early access. But here at one point, I was like, okay, what choice do I want to make? And I ended up going the opposite way of my early access playthrough. And when I went in and I made those choices, King Arthur acknowledged that that was probably the right thing to do. So he was reacting to it a little bit. But also, I didn't get knocked out. Still, the quest ended up the same way. Where, like, again, the end point of it all, which again I won't spoil for you, was the same. But just the way characters within the story reacted was a little bit different, which I did appreciate. So I'm curious to see how expansive that choice and consequence gets. But overall, you can even skill check in points of conversation. There was a necromancer I met that I was able to like talk him out of necromancy because my character was very magic focused. So I understood like spirituality and principality and all that stuff. So I was able to kind of talk my way through that. It's a percentage chance-based skill check, so you just have to have points in that skill. And like there were skill checks I passed that were 25%, so they let me get through. I'm always a little iffy on the dice roll skill checks in dialogue because I like more so that you hit a prerequisite and then it's available to you. I think of it a bit like a trait or a perk in say Fallout New Vegas, where it's like, hey, you do get to say this. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I know some people just like having the opportunity to do so, but I think it feels better as a player when like your character build is respected and you hit like that certain point and you see that dialogue option is only available to you there. But nonetheless, that's basically the top-down look at Tainted Grail Fall of Avalon. The combat is really fun in the magic form, at least. Exploration is good, the story is interesting, the music's awesome, the world is engrossing and expansive, and I know, like, after getting Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and Oblivion, and then you get another big fantasy world game, you're like, man, I don't know, I'm kind of cooked on these things, but this one just offers, again, another flavor. It kind of mixes together the Bethesda jank with the Euro jank into a special, unique blend, but again, it also takes those things I love about Elder Scrolls and evolves them. Because, like, I don't think Elder Scrolls does distraction-based exploration really well. You know, it's usually, like, you go to point A, you go to point B, and you're done. There's sometimes those moments where you wander into a crypt, and you're like, oh, there's someone here, or there's a book here, and a quest opens up, and I love that stuff. But for the most part, this game really does embrace that you're going to this location as a whole for like a main quest or a side quest, but there's quests within those quests that you can find here. And I found that breathed a little bit of life into it, and the combat feeling great as it did, and just being so action-oriented was fun, while still respecting character building and making my character build feel really unique. So I'm just excited to continue to sink my teeth into this one. It has been an absolute blast. I just want to make sure in that launch window I gave it some cover, gave it some thought, so that those of you who are maybe looking for more of an Elder Scrolls style game in a year where there's been a lot of those types of BGS games, I could get your hands on yet another one, especially because it's getting such little coverage. So let me know if you're playing Tainted Grail, what you're thinking. If you're planning on picking it up, fire away down below. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will catch you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.
Alright, we'll watch something spooky.
Why does there seem to be such a high number of dogman sightings reported?
We're about to go back in. Some dude was selling like 900 rounds of flechette, so I just bought him out. Or shells, I guess, to be more specific. But we gotta make room inside the stash now. I did pick up a bunch of slickers for my scav vest barter, and I bought some Ushankas. Oh, actually, I bought like 10. This quest is gonna fucking suck, though. I already know. Although I don't think no, I think it's only like 8 kills now or something like that. Incredible if I got it done in just a couple of raids. Be kind of nice. Skaves, Ushanka, empty series.
In Ohio and the surrounding states. A 1972 railroad worker was physically attacked by something that resembled an upright wolf, except it had a weapon. A fisherman on the Mahoning River who encountered something watching him from the trees, and a man who inherited a cabin.
I gotta take a piss. I'll be back.
Just outside. This episode will take you through 3 witness accounts of seeing something we all truly fear. You won't want to miss this one. On the night of July 25th, 1972, a railroad worker named Ted Davis was doing what he had done hundreds of times before, inspecting train couplings in the Sumner Street rail yard in Defiance, Ohio. Ted worked for Norfolk and Western Local Freight, and his job wasn't what most people would consider glamorous. It was often hard work, often done in sweltering heat or freezing cold, but he considered it honest work that paid the bills. And on this particular night, he had just arrived in Defiance after the regular nightly run from Toledo. While most of his other coworkers were busy unloading freight from the boxcars, he was methodically making his way down the length of the train, checking each coupling to make sure everything was secure. But there was something different about the atmosphere that night. The air was unusually... Every day, the brave men and women of law enforcement put their lives on the line to keep us safe. But when they sign up to protect and serve, sometimes they're also signing up for something.
What the hell happened in the last video? Alright, police confess. Alright, this one should be scary.
Different, to expect the unexpected. Because even in the midst of all the day-to-day patrolling and crime solving, sometimes things happen that are simply out of this world. Threats can come from places you would never expect. Today, we're looking at 3 police officers who had their lives changed after brushing up against the blurry edges of reality. You won't want to miss this one.
Spooky, spooky. Oh god.
Our first story comes from an officer in Iowa who prefers to remain anonymous. In fact, he said, and I quote, "I assure you there never was nor will be an official statement or record with my name on it telling this story. For these reasons, we'll call him Dave." Back in 2014, Dave was serving as a deputy sheriff. His usual assignment was to patrol up and down the corridors of Highway 30 and Highway 13 around the eastern and southern sides of Cedar Rapids. Now, normally, there wasn't anything all that remarkable in his day-to-day life, but all that changed on July 1st. That day, a call went out to all available law enforcement. You see, there had been a tragic accident. Someone had drowned near the Quaker Oats plant. The Quaker Oats plant is actually the largest cereal mill on the planet. It sits on the northern side of the city, alongside the Cedar River and nearby Cedar Lake. It was here that a young man, around 16 or 17, had been pulled into a storm drain. Officers and other first responders were looking for his body, which must have followed the storm drain into the nearby watershed. Now, even though the Quaker Oats plant is near downtown Cedar Rapids, certain stretches along the shore of the Cedar River are actually heavily wooded. In fact, on the east side of the river, near to the plant, sits Mohawk City Park, a popular recreation destination for people in the greater Cedar Rapids area. But despite this heavy forest cover in certain parts, it is not exactly an isolated area. There's usually plenty of foot traffic, which makes what Dave experienced even more remarkable. And since the storm drain where the missing person was reported empties into Cedar Lake, well, Dave's job was to look for the victim near this portion of the search radius. And as soon as he arrived on the scene, Dave parked his cruiser at the electric company storage yard and set out on his mission to help locate the young man. Maybe, with luck, he was still alive. Well, Dave says that he set down along a paved bike trail, and the trail ran alongside the river, and between the trail and the river sat a large concrete stowaway that helped alleviate rising water levels whenever the Cedar River flooded. On the other side of the trail was a 10-foot fence. And at first, Dave didn't need his flashlight, but as the hours dragged on, he eventually had to use it if he stood any chance of seeing anything in the shadows that were deepening along either side of the path. While everyone had hoped for an early night, it soon started to become apparent that that wouldn't be the case. The sun continued falling behind the trees until everything was covered in a cloak of darkness. Now, finally, it starts getting really late. Dave isn't sure of the exact time, but he knows it is sometime between 11:30 and midnight. And Dave is searching, concentrating his flashlight beam in the saplings and brush that's grown up between the bike path and the stowaway, but he's not finding anything at all, not even any clues that might provide hints of the missing person's whereabouts. Just nothing, so David adjusts course. He keeps heading to where the trail cuts to the south, near where Cedar Lake empties itself into Cedar River. Here, there are railroad tracks, first put up a long time ago to help the Quaker Oats plant move shipments to and from the building. But tonight, the tracks are mostly empty, with the exception of a set furthest from the trail, where a lone locomotive sits waiting for tomorrow's delivery. Now, Dave is looking for a missing person. He's on the job, so he's laser focused, and that means he doesn't notice the glow until it becomes too bright to ignore. When the light finally catches Dave's attention, he doesn't know exactly what it is, but finds no reason to be alarmed. From this angle, it could easily be the red taillights of a car moving away from his position, but he can't be sure. And remember, this isn't Dave's usual patrol route. He's not familiar with the area as the cops who have this as their beat. Later, Dave learned that there was no road in that area, but even in the moment, he sensed that this had to be the case, because taillights from cars usually move away from you, and whatever this is, moving towards his position on the bike path down the tracks from the opposite side of the parked train, but then the light disappears. All in all, it seems like nothing to get worked up about. So Dave just continues his search. He moves closer to the train tracks, doing his best to be as thorough in his search as possible. But after about 5 minutes, he hears something, and it sounds like an animal. And sure enough, the closer he gets to the train tracks, the clearer it becomes. Something is on the opposite side, snorting and snuffling, almost sniffing, as if it's searching for something. Now, Dave wonders for a moment whether or not there might be another officer on the other side with a canine unit. And so Dave follows the tracks a little further along the trail as it turns back on itself. And that's when he sees something. It's the red lights again. But now they're closer, much closer. So close that he can tell they aren't lights. They're eyes. A pair of these blood red glowing eyes staring back at him from the darkness. And they're hovering at least 8 feet above the ground. Now, between the glow from the eyes and the beam of his light, he's able to make out a form standing in front of him. It's important to know that Dave is not a small person. I mean, he stands around 6 feet 4 inches and weighs 280 pounds, but whatever this thing is, it is simply massive. Not only does it stand incredibly tall, but judging from how muscular it is, it must weigh at least 450. In addition to its size, there's something else that is important to know. Dave isn't a scaredy cat. He said, and I quote, "There ain't much things in the world that scare me, but nothing prepared me for that night. I turned my light, and to this day,
Now, we're just going to do some casual looting. Let the Chads go do their thing over at Dorms or Fortress. And I am going to make my way to Industrial and Old Gas. Yep. We might be able to pull a kill if this other spawn decides to pull up to Big Red. Maybe. Oh. You can always tell when the med bag spawns because it like protrudes out the back of the trunk. If we find a corrugated hose, though, we might try to avoid any PvP. I think it's... I only need one more, and then I should be good after that. Sherman's here. I don't have a weapon repair kit. We're probably going to leave with this. they're only worth like 100k. They're not. It's not a crazy amount. So if I get too heavy, I might just end up like tossing her. To be honest. It would be advantageous for me to keep an eye out for a Letty. I think we have movement outside. Yep, we're gonna probably avoid the PvP unless we walk into it. Then we'll give her a go. I keep thinking that's a PMC right over there, dude. Find a lion over here. I've only ever seen it once, but if we can find a lion, I'm assuming we can find a Bitcoin too. We're still going to make our way to the industrial area and old gas too. I don't think I've ever noticed those buildings right there. The fuck? There's train tracks behind it too. It's new. Afraid to leave. he literally has fucking blood coming out of his head. He wants to attract these boys over here. We're probably just... Oh. Oh, that's a fucking scav right there. Let's see if we can pull any over LVS though. There's my first scav. Coming up. Yes, another one. Well, it'd be nice if they spawned in with some fucking food. Oh, shit.
Вон он! Куда он приебался-то?
Oh, fucking turd gonna come in here or what? I hit him in the leg. Come to Papa. We'll probably kill him and then head over to Old Gas and see if we can pull a few kills over there. I feel like I have more difficulties pulling scav kills at Old Gas compared to Industrial.
Вот он!
Oh, the other one I shot is right over there yonder. Holy fucking shit! Alright. I ain't complaining. Last one's pulling up right now. Oh, fuck. You know what? We're gonna verify something. If those kills, if that kill right there would count or not. So we're at 11:15. I'm gonna say it counts. It does. Nice. Scav. You little shit. We'll see if we can pull a kill or two from old gas. probably just hit the reset button, to be honest. 5:30. I always forget I can take the green flavor extract. I don't know why. It was not even a task I was tracking, to be honest.
I wish I hadn't. And that's because Dave was now looking at something that was not at all human. And atop a set of muscular shoulders sat what resembled the head of a dog, complete with a long muzzle and pointed ears. Whatever it was not a person. Besides how big it was, there was no way what Dave was seeing was a mask or a costume. Besides, who would be so dumb as to walk up to an armed police officer wearing a disguise like that? It was asking for trouble. Well, Dave said that the thing took one long, intense look directly into his face, then turned around and bolted into the trees just up ahead. And as he watched it run off into the shadows, he immediately unholstered his sidearm, chambering around, but even that felt like it wouldn't be enough to protect him from whatever he had just seen. So Dave skittered back down the bike trail, all the way to where his cruiser was parked in the electric company storage yard. There, he made his way to his vehicle, making sure to keep his back to the tall fence the entire way. He would finally reach his car, hop inside, but didn't holster his pistol until he was on the road. Only then did he allow himself a moment to relax.
I had kind of a similar story. I want to say it was like 5 years back. We're in Georgia. We go camping. And my buddy and I did like a 2-3 mile fucking hike and to go camping. And I told that motherfucker to bring some extra water for his dog. he didn't. And we got to our area. It's like, fuck, we're kind of low on water. I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to run back to your truck, get some water. So I threw the bag up in front of me. I had my gun in there. And I took off running back to his truck. And topped off on the water. And by that time, I think dusk was happening. So it was like that point in time whenever, the sky is still bright enough, but like looking through the woods though, it was dark as fuck. I couldn't see anything. Well, not a whole lot. I just stuck to the trail. It was like, yeah, it was like 2 or 3 miles or some shit each way. So yeah, I probably ran about 4 to 5, maybe up to 6 miles, and that's not even including the first hike in, I guess. I don't know, but dude, there's something massive behind the tree right off the trail, dude. I'm like walking by, it was on a massive curve, and whatever this fucking thing was, dude, it was standing behind the tree, and it knew where I was at. So I pulled my gun out, chambered one, or maybe I hit, but turned the fucking light on. I told whatever it was to come out from behind the tree, and it fucking listened to me. And I just kept going down the trail while I was like aimed at that fucking tree. And it was a big fucking tree too. Whatever it was, it stayed behind the tree though. And then once I got far enough away, I just fucking booked it. Just hauled fucking ass. It was insane. It was scary as fuck is what it was. I don't know. To this day, I still don't know what the fuck was behind that tree.
Taking a bunch of deep breaths to try and flush out the adrenaline.
But it was moving around the tree as I was progressing through the trail though. It knew I was there. It was fucking weird.
Out of his system.
I never spoke of it then, and honestly don't know why I am now. But one thing is for certain, it knew I was there, and it was watching my every move.
Yeah, that was it.
I'll never go back. And I no longer work with the department since becoming a minister. But I still carry a Glock with hollow point rounds tipped with silver if, and I rarely do, leave my home at night.
Exactly what Dave saw the night of July 1st.
Tipped with silver. It was a fucking vampire that dude ran into. I don't know.
2014 in Cedar Rapids remains a mystery. He obviously thinks it's a werewolf, while others think that it was still mysterious but less supernatural. They say that a flesh and blood dogman prowls the area around Cedar River and Mohawk City Park. If that is indeed the case, then Dave's sighting represents something not unheard of, but nonetheless pretty rare. An encounter with a dogman extremely close to one of America's urban centers. Unfortunately, the identity of the animal or creature or being that Dave saw that night remains unknown. In 2011, a sheriff's deputy by the name of Kevin was just sitting in a squad car just outside the city of Burlington, Wisconsin. And unlike Dave from the last story, Kevin had seen some strange things during his time in law enforcement. In fact, Kevin saw Dogman on a few occasions himself, which Linda Godfrey shared in her book, Monsters Among Us. But we'll talk about the sightings of his another time, because today we're focusing on what might have been the strangest thing he ever experienced. Yes, even stranger than a bipedal wolf. It had been a clear day, but now the sun was setting, and Kevin had just pulled into his cruiser into a gravel lot on the northern side of town. The lot offered parking for people wanting to do a little outdoor recreation, offering easy access to a footpath that skirted alongside an expansive marshland and into a dark, hilly forest that led deeper into the Wisconsin wilderness. Perfect for a drug deal. But Kevin was still on the clock. No recreation for him. He was trying to get a head start on some paperwork. So Kevin sat there, his engine idling, the only vehicle in the entire gravel parking lot, and set to work. Now, he had been filing forms for long when he glanced up and noticed something strange. The last time he had looked through the windshield, everything had been normal. But now, mere moments later, something had started oozing up from the direction of the marsh. And there, among the lily pads and cattails, something inexplicable had manifested. It seemed to be a thick green haze. Kevin moved in his seat for a better look. He couldn't see anywhere that the mist was coming from. It wasn't pouring out of a hole in the ground or even steaming up off the water in the marsh. It was just there, as if it had simply just popped into existence. And now, Kevin is watching as this green mist suddenly starts shifting and changing. A moment ago, it had been still, but now, the thick clouds of green vapor were kind of just rolling out of the marsh towards the gravel parking lot, straight in the direction of his parked squad car. Kevin wasn't about to drive away, but he wasn't about to hop out of the vehicle for a better look. Instead, he balanced his curiosity and caution and just sat there, watching as the low coils of green haze kind of just rolled closer toward him. Soon, they covered the entire distance between his vehicle and the edge of the marsh, kind of just blanketing everything in this sickly green haze. At last, the mist reached his position. It was hard to judge its size, but Kevin later said that it was at least an acre across, if he had to guess. But as Kevin was busy studying the size of the mist, something even more bizarre happened. He could do nothing but watch in astonishment as each piece of equipment inside his cruiser died, one by one. Although his engine remained running, the RPMs dropped dramatically, to the point where they barely registered on his dashboard. The headlights dimmed until they barely cast any light on the gravel in front of him, and then the computer screen went dark, followed by the portable police radio. Moments earlier, it had registered as fully charged, and now the battery was completely depleted. He held his breath. What was going to happen? Would the green mist find its way into his cruiser? If it did, what would happen? Was it toxic? As the minutes ticked on, Kevin fought the urge to drive away, but since the RPMs had dropped so low, he knew that even if it was still running, the engine was somehow being affected by this green vapor that had engulfed his vehicle. The last thing he needed was to put unnecessary stress on the engine and have it die. Then he'd really be in trouble. So Kevin just waited. And it felt like an eternity, but finally, after lingering for what felt like forever, the green mist kind of repositioned itself, and slowly the clouds retreated, and the thick haze set off on a course north in the direction of the wilderness. It simply dissolved into the forest. And moments later, every last electronic component in the car recovered, including the portable police radio. Now, Kevin never knew exactly how long the entire event lasted because he never looked at his watch. But he would later tell Linda Godfrey that it didn't feel very long. But that's not the entire story. In fact, Kevin said,
"When I parked in the light, there was still pink in the sky to the west. But when the haze was gone, the sky was dark, black. It was near the end of the shift, about 10 p.m. Luckily, I was not dispatched to any calls at the time, since I would not have been aware of them due to the fact that none of my communication equipment worked. Looking back on it now, the period that the haze was near me seemed to be a very short time span. But it seemed as though the end of my shift came too quickly. I did not realize it at the time. At the time, this seemed as though it was a matter of minutes, but looking back on it, crazy as it may sound, it could have lasted for a half hour. I do not really know."
And as unsettling as Kevin's encounter with the green mist had proven, it wasn't the last time he and these strange clouds would cross paths. He would experience the exact same thing less than a year later. And this time, Kevin was once more in a parking lot. The location was different, and he was sitting in his cruiser near the boat ramp at Fisher County Park on Burlington's east side along Browns Lake. He watched as an identical green mist manifested near the marine area to the west, then took off with seemingly intelligent control out over the water. Its destination seemed to be a house on an island in the middle of the lake. But by the time it reached the south end of the island, it kind of just evaporated. Now, thankfully, Kevin was apparently too far away this time for the mist to notice him. It never approached his squad car, and because of that, he never experienced any electronics malfunction, nor any of the unsettling time discrepancies noticed in his first encounter. Now, by all estimates, both his internal sense of time and the clock in his car indicated that only a few moments had passed. But the experiences that Kevin endured still left him wondering exactly what he had seen on those two occasions outside Burlington. In that regard, he's just like us. Sometimes there are no answers. Now, for our final story, we head north, over the border into Ontario, Canada. Unlike our last two officers, this time the witness was off duty. The man, who was 50 years old, only identified himself by the initials JS, but his story has been authenticated by researchers, whatever that means. For now, we'll call him Jack. First, a little background on Jack. It's easy to see why researchers were able to put so much faith in his sighting. I mean, after all, Jack had served as a law enforcement officer in Toronto for more than 28 years. He's a family man and is no stranger to the outdoors. He's like your typical avatar of many of these people who experienced these kinds of things. I mean, he started shooting at the age of 7, hunting at 9, and in the years since, he has tracked and bagged just about everything there is to legally hunt in the Canadian wilderness, including bear and moose. And it was on one of these moose hunts that he got more than he bargained for. You see, it was late 2003. Jack was back in the spot where he usually hunted moose, a spot 30 miles northeast of Sault Ste. Marie, near a little town called Searchmont, Ontario. Early on the morning of October 14th, Jack and his brother-in-law headed up an old trail on their ATVs, but eventually, two things happened. First, the trail led them to a dead end, and second, Jack's ATV got stuck in the mud. And after a lot of effort, Jack and his brother-in-law managed to free the vehicle, and the two of them separated. Jack now turned around, headed back down the trail to a clearing that he had spotted earlier that he thought might make a good hunting spot. So, after just a little bit of driving, Jack arrives at the site around 7:45 in the morning and realizes that he was absolutely right. Here, he has a clear view for about 200 yards, both to the north and to the south. And now, Jack is getting to work. He puts out some scent on the trees that have a moose cow in heat to lure in the bulls. And when he's finally ready, he pulls out his horn and sounds some moose calls. Now, when all is said and done, it's now 8:05 in the morning. All he has to do, folks, is just sit there and wait. Unfortunately, it starts raining within 10 minutes, and Jack is frustrated because he doesn't want to get his firearm wet, so he returns it to the storage of his ATV. And now he'll just have to wait it out in the rain and keeping an eye out for a moose the entire time, and hope that he can retrieve his gun in time for a shot. Now, in some ways, the rain is good because it masks his scent, but in other ways, Jack hates the rain because now he can't hear much over the sound of water hitting the leaves in the ground. But he doesn't have any trouble hearing whatever it is approaching him 15 minutes later. Whatever it is, it's heavy, and doesn't seem to be bothered at all by the racket it's making, snapping twigs and thumping the ground with its heavy footfalls. But the other reason that Jack has no problem hearing this visitor is because as soon as he realizes it must be right on top of him, instantly he hears an unmistakable noise. The sound of the sound of a big bull moose dragging its rack on the brush. And Jack is just heartbroken because it's too close now and the guy is still in the trunk. While the trunk is right behind him, he knows he'll make a lot of noise getting it out and miss his chance. So in the span of a few heartbeats, Jack gets even sadder. Now he can see the bull, and it's simply huge. It's standing there just about 70 yards away, raking its antlers, and Jack knows he has to go for it no matter how loud he might be. Well, Jack reaches back and fetches his gun, the lid slams, but Jack is relatively confident that it isn't loud enough to scare a bull this big. But when he turns around to take aim, he notices that the moose has bolted into the safety of the brush. He would say,
"I thought this was a bit strange, because I've seen several moose in the past that just stood there. They don't seem to be afraid of anything. I've had them stand in front of me for several minutes before walking off into the bush in the past, and couldn't understand why this one took off so fast."
And Jack stood his ground for another half hour, but the moose never reappeared. Whatever had spooked it good. Now later, he's able to get a hold of his brother-in-law, who investigates where the bull took off, but can find no sign of it. So Jack decides to set up where the moose disappeared, just hoping that it might come back. Well, the hours drag on with no such luck. Lunchtime comes and goes, Jack eats, smokes a cigarette or two, and dozes off, all in the rain, but no moose. In fact, the only interesting thing that happens occurs around 1:30 in the afternoon. And Jack hears some thumping from behind him, but it's not the footfalls of any animal. It's far too sporadic and not rhythmic enough. And at first, he assumes it's just some winds falling, but he can't get over how loud they are, audible even above the rain. And at one point, he could have sworn that someone chucked a rock at him, but each time he turns around to look, he doesn't see anything. And so 5:25 rolls around, and Jack finds himself back on the ATV, having a smoke. He stores his gun in the gun bag and goes around to face the goalie where the moose vanished. But he's starting to lose all hope of bagging anything today. And as he's standing there, he notices something odd. Not far away from his ATV, although it had been there when he arrived at the clearing, and Jack hadn't looked very closely at it. But now, he can't help but give it a second look. He said this.
I saw a large, probably moose leg bone, lying on the ground about 5 feet from my ATV. It wasn't cut or sawed. It had been broken or snapped. It looked to be about at least a year old.
And Jack is just looking at this moose bone, wondering what could have been strong enough to cause it to snap in half. And that was when it happened. It was the sound of footsteps, of leaves crunching and twigs snapping. Jack's heart skipped a beat. Quickly, he fetched his firearm, got into position, eyes glued on the goalie. The bull had come back. The day wasn't going to be a waste of time after all, but not so fast. Jack described what happened next.
When I looked into the gully, about 40 yards straight in front of me, I saw what I thought was a man walking towards me. He was stooped over and looked like he was having trouble walking in the bush. He grabbed the tree and swung himself around and ducked or dove down behind some thick brush. The total time of this took 3 to 5 seconds, and he disappeared. He looked to me as if he was dressed all in black with a black toque or a balaclava on his head. It looked like he was wearing a jacket, and the front of his jacket was open halfway, and I could see a different color of lining showing around the neck area. It looked like it was a light gray or almost blue on the chest area in the shape of a V. I got the impression he was trying to get out of sight.
Jack couldn't get a good look or a good read on anything else, but there was something about this person. There was nothing nearby for scale, but he seemed to be roughly the height of an average, or excuse me, above average man. But Jack did notice one other thing. The arms seemed to be just a little too long. That and the size of the man's hands seemed too big. They were clear to see as the man grabbed a nearby tree, which he used as a leverage to swing around into the thicker cover of the bush. Now, the size of the tree trunk had been at least 4 inches wide, and the hand grasped the entire circumference effortlessly. The other thing that Jack noticed in that brief moment was how muscular the man looked. Certainly, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson isn't hanging out here, right? And he would later describe him as like Arnold Schwarzenegger in a ninja suit. There was definitely no fat on him, unlike me. And all he could see was the different muscle groups on his upper body, and the arms bulging out could see that it had a washboard stomach. And now, taking all this into account, the length of the arms, the size of the hands, the intensity of the man's physique, Jack found himself second-guessing what he had just seen. Was it a man at all? Or was it something stranger? Why wasn't the other hunter wearing any orange? Was that a dark jacket he had spotted darting between the trees? Or was it a thick layer of black or brown hair soaked through the skin with rain? As if in response to Jack's thought, a long howl sounded from off to his left, and the direction that the figure had vanished. It dragged on, hoarse and sad, for around maybe 10 to 15 seconds before ending in a kind of cough. And Jack would say this.
That was no bear. That was no wolf. That was no moose. It sounded like a wolf howl, but much deeper than any wolf I've ever heard. The sound came from about 20 yards from where I first saw it dive for cover. It was like nothing I'd ever seen in 35 years of hunting. What it looked like to me was a gorilla, or very close to one. But it walked upright, not on all fours. I stood there motionless for almost an hour and a half waiting to see if it would show itself again. I was supposed to sit there for the next 3 days to finish the hunt off and wait for that bull, and I didn't want to be there. I was going to go back to that area the next day looking for that bull, but I couldn't bring myself to go anywhere near that spot. That's the first time in 35 years I've ever been afraid in the bush. I've never been that scared in a bush in my life.
Like the big bull moose he had spotted earlier in the day, the creature that Jack had seen never put in a second appearance. The hunt ended unsuccessfully. But as the days drew on and Jack shared more and more details about his sighting with his family, he eventually found the courage to come forward and share his experience with the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, which I know isn't a lot because a lot of people think they're a joke, but that's where he shared it. In the end, when looking back over the events from that day, Jack came away with one conclusion. Whatever he saw had not been a human being. In fact, he thinks that it was the creature, the Bigfoot, that had scared off the big bull he had hoped to bag. And Jack would later tell investigators this.
I've been in the bush my whole life, and I've never seen anything like that, or heard anything like that. A couple of weeks ago, if you'd have asked me, I'd have said BS. There's no such thing. If I had to go just on the sighting itself, no noise, nothing, I'd say it was a gorilla. But there's no gorillas in Canada, and it didn't walk on all fours. It was upright, you know?
And because you guys have made it this far into the episode, I want you all to comment below, you're under arrest. So that way I know who made it to the end and who didn't. And if you guys enjoy content like this where we kind of deep dive into strange cases of the mysterious and supernatural, then what are you waiting for? Smack that like and subscribe button for more content just like this. And as February 15th, 2023.
Alright, well, we upgraded stuff inside the hideout, turned in a task or two. I think what we're going to probably do now is we need to get one more kill inside of Industrial, and then I need like 5 or 6, or 4 or 5 more kills over in Old Gas. Which might do that off stream. It was boring as fuck. I think for me to do it last time, I literally just had to go prone next to that tanker and literally wait out the entire fucking match, like 40 minutes or whatever it is. We'll see if we can pull some kills over there, and yeah, I brought in an AUG. So we'll try to do the scav kills with the AUG, because I think for ref you have to get 5. It's like a super early task. I've never done it before, but it's super fucking simple. Just 5 scavs with an AUG, and I don't think there's a reward though. But if I get this last scav kill instead of industrial though, it gives me 0.02 respect, and that'll get me to level 2 ref, which will allow me to buy the 308 boxes, so I can plant that later on whenever we get to plant like the DVL and magazine and the spectroscope and whatnot. So, but I gotta take a piss, so we're gonna go back and watch this.
Combat radar aboard the USS Jackson tags 4 Tic Tacs shooting straight out of the Pacific, then vanishing at 22,000 feet in a single frame. 1 month later, an armchair sleuth zooms in inside Area 51 and finds a 190-foot black triangle tower the government still refuses to name. 2 strange voice bursts break Russia's ultraviolet buzzer station, its first real word since Crimea, and shortwave hounds everywhere start timing doomsday. But the darkest file of all, a Soviet firefight where a bright sphere reduced 23 soldiers to limestone, and the CIA quietly agreed the threat was beyond human technology. 4 military mysteries, 4 disturbing secrets. I'm Josh D'Inocchio, and this is What Lurks Beneath. You won't want to miss this one. On the night of February 15th, 2023, the Combat Information Center, or CIC, of the USS Jackson was fully staffed with operators monitoring various detection systems as the littoral combat ship floated at coordinates off the Southern California coast. The ship was operating within W291 warning area, and the nighttime conditions created an optimal environment for detecting any illuminated objects against the sky. Now, around 7:15 p.m., the operators in the CIC began detecting some anomalous readings on the ship's radar. As multiple reconnaissance platforms began tracking these strange objects, there was initial confusion among the operators about what exactly they were seeing. One of the CIC operators looked at a screen and said somewhat uncertainly that there was something definitely showing up. Another operator jokingly responded that they should scramble the jets, to which the first operator replied quite seriously that it wouldn't surprise him at all if they did. Well, as the confusion continued, one of the CIC operators decided to leave his monitoring station and move to the bridge wing to try to visually confirm what was appearing on their sensors. Standing outside, he began carefully scanning the horizon, mentally cataloging and differentiating between the city lights in the distance, other ships in the vicinity, and what appeared to be anomalous objects that their systems were tracking. With his extensive maritime experience, he was able to clearly identify unusual light patterns that didn't match conventional sources. And what happened next was even more extraordinary. The operator observed one of the objects physically emerging from the water, and having spent most of his life at sea, he later explained that he absolutely knew the difference between a light on the horizon coming up and a light coming out of the water. This object transitioned seamlessly from an underwater to an airborne state with no splash or water disruption or any of the conventional characteristics that you'd expect from something coming out of the ocean. It simply emerged and joined the other objects that were already airborne. Another CIC operator noted about one of the objects that it had taken off earlier, indicating that the appearances had been staggered over time. And so
that was like quick fucking load in. Alright, we are probably just gonna do a little bit of looting over here. Allow the big boys to go play with themselves, and I'm gonna try to get my scav kills. What kind of fucking scrub doesn't chamber around, huh? It was a nice gym bag. Oh my god. I don't remember what I need that for, to be honest. I know it's something in the hideout. we pull a graphics, it's probably going to take priority. I think I'm on that task right now too, I'm pretty certain. Sound like some pistol boys. Are you boys running pistols? Huh? He thinks they're running pistols, I'm pretty certain. Man, I'm not tired at all. I didn't even take a fucking nap after I got off work or anything. I did lay down though for a little bit. Yeah, I didn't pass out. Too tired to hop on Tarky. No shot. We're gonna pull a GPU out of here real quick. I'm a little scared. I'm pretty certain those doors are supposed to be closed on it. Bro, dude, they might have changed the inside of this. I don't remember it being so, like, white in here or gray. I don't know, maybe. Maybe it was, I just never noticed this whole time. No, there's no fucking way, dude. This was not white on the inside. We might have bad guys over at Old Gas. I feel like I heard a suppressed shot over there. Bad guy PMC though. Oh, bro. Got a fucking 60 banger right there. Well, we're gonna backtrack though. I don't know where the fuck that suppressed shot was shot at. We'll go back to checkpoints, see if we can pull a scav or two with the AUG. There's scabos here. I'm gonna get you, bitch. Feeling like someone called that motherfucker in. ass bitch. Someone's taking the car extract right now too. That's PMC, boys. We got the scav up on the bridge over there. It's kind of got me wondering too if that scab literally just killed a PMC. I thought it happened the other way, but I don't know. I don't want to. I didn't want to kill those scabs either because I could probably lure them into industrial and get my last kill. We got a guy taking the flare extract. I'll let him extract just this once. If I had tapped one of them, they'd probably be pretty pissed. See if we can find some food, some hydration, shit like that. Shouldn't really die either. I do have a fountain raid flash drive. Actually, you know what? We might just go for the reset. Yeah, we're gonna do that. We'll double check, see if we can find any scabs over here. Old gas, and then we'll go for the reset. Actually, I might have old gas. No, I don't. So I'm pretty well topped off right now. We finished the task, and that flash drive's kind of a W.
So at this point, the ship's systems were tracking 4 tic-tac-shaped UAPs simultaneously. Their presence was confirmed through multiple detection systems, including radar tracker, FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared footage, and visual confirmation from personnel. The technical observations recorded some
I never fucking knew that's what flares stand for.
very bizarre characteristics. Like, these objects had no visible flight control surfaces, like wings or stabilizers, or any conventional propulsion signatures like heat plumes or exhaust, and they appear to be self-illuminated. Then came what the witnesses would later describe as the most incredible part.
I hit one of those motherfuckers, dude, when they're extracting. Take a look at this. So all the scabs I killed, the highest distance was 12.7 meters. My furthest shot, though, and I think it only takes into account once you get past the 100-meter threshold, was 176. So, yeah, I probably just hit one of those dudes in the chest, or the limbs or something like that if I had a bet.
All 4 UAPs suddenly prepared to depart with no warning or indication of imminent movement. The objects moved in perfect synchronization. As the operator who had gone outside described it, all 4 of them jetted off into the abyss in perfect synchronous movement. Their departure was characterized as instantaneous, and his reaction, which he later shared with investigators, was simply, holy cow. Seconds after witnessing this, the CIC operator rushed back to his radar station, where he confirmed that all objects had completely vanished from the radar, there was no conventional acceleration pattern detected, and no sonic signature recorded, despite the extreme speed they must have achieved. He confirmed to the others that the objects were all off radar, and that was it. They had all zoomed off. The footage was secured as evidence, and operator statements were transcribed and collected. After thorough analysis, the observations were officially designated as unidentified aerial phenomena. Now, the final report, which wasn't published until April 8th of this year, which is 2025, in case you're watching from the future, almost 2 years after the incident, it stated that neither the origin nor destination of these objects could be determined, and it concluded that the operator, purpose, capability, and intent of these craft were completely unknown. Despite being observed by multiple witnesses and tracked by advanced military detection, the craft remain officially unidentified. Now, one of the witnesses later said that when you've been on the water more in your life than you haven't been, you know the difference between conventional objects and what they saw that night. He wasn't shocked that he was seeing it, he was just shocked that he was sharing the experience with others. As of today, there's been no conclusive explanation for what the crew encountered that night off the Southern California coast. It remains a mystery. On a chilly evening in early April of 2025, a 34-year-old computer programmer named Tyler Davidson sat hunched over his laptop in a small apartment in Reno, Nevada. For years, Tyler had harbored this fascination with Area 51, but not because he believed in aliens or government conspiracies, but simply because he found secretive military installations intriguing, at least from an architectural and logistical perspective. So that night, Tyler was doing what he often did during his free time, which was methodically exploring the Nevada desert using Google Earth, just examining the terrain surrounding Area 51. And by this time, he'd already spent countless evenings doing this, slowly working outward from the base's known perimeter and capturing screenshots of anything that looked interesting or at least unusual. To Tyler, it was like a digital archaeology project, kind of just piecing together what he could about this mysterious place from publicly available satellite imagery. Now, as Tyler zoomed in on an unexplored section within the boundaries of Area 51, he noticed something that immediately made him sit up straighter. There, casting a long shadow across the desert floor, was a distinctive triangular structure. He checked the coordinates, and double-checked he was looking at the right area. He'd never seen anyone mention this before in any of the online forums that he went to. And his first thought was that he must have made a mistake. Maybe this was a known installation that he'd somehow missed in his research. But as he examined it more closely, its geometric properties seemed too perfect. Triangle, tall enough to cast a significant shadow, and it didn't look like a typical hangar or radar installation that you'd expect. And so he took several screenshots, adjusting the view to capture the structure from multiple angles. He wasn't sure what he was looking at, but he knew it was something noteworthy. After saving the images, Tyler hesitated for a moment. He wasn't normally the type to share discoveries online, preferring to keep his research private, but this just seemed too significant to keep to himself. So with a few clicks, Tyler created a post on Reddit. He titled it simply, "Tall Triangular-Shaped Tower," and included screenshots along with the exact coordinates. He figured a few people might find it interesting, but he wasn't prepared for what happened. By the following morning, his post had exploded. Thousands of upvotes and hundreds of comments, with people offering wildly different theories about what the triangular structure might be. The post quickly spread beyond Reddit to other platforms like Twitter, or I guess X now, right? Facebook, and just a bunch of other places, where people just began heavily examining it, looking at the coordinates on Google Earth. And, of course, some people joked about the structure's purpose, like saying that it was obviously alien technology because of how it looks. Others suggested that Area 51 was actually just a facility, so they could freely do whatever they want at all the other black sites that nobody knows about. But there were other, more mundane explanations, suggesting it might just be a skyscraper structure of some kind for, observation, or maybe large exhaust vents for underground facilities. Who knows? Military technology enthusiasts propose that it could be a radar or even a communications tower. Maybe it's a specialized testing structure, or perhaps an experimental aircraft hangar with the unique design for some classified purpose. But if you think about it, for decades, Area 51 has been the focus of a lot of extraterrestrial theories going on, right? There's a lot of speculation that the base doesn't just house spacecraft, but actual biological entities, or at least attempts at reverse engineering alien technology. So maybe is this structure a portal or transportation system for non-human entities? Or maybe a communication tower to contact beings from other worlds? I don't know, I'm just going off. Interestingly, a week after he made his post, it began to get picked up by major outlets. And interestingly, the United States government actually hasn't even acknowledged that this tower exists. There's no official comment or explanation at all since this is blown up, which just makes all of this much more interesting. Shortly after this, I'd say about 2 weeks after him posting this, he actually got interviewed by a local news.
I know a guy that knew a guy that deployed out there a while back. He wasn't allowed to tell me fucking anything about it. I was like picking his fucking brain. He's like, "Hey, wealthy bum, can I bum a smoke off you?" I was like, "Yeah, let's go outside and go smoke." I'm like, "Yeah, you've never deployed at your rank? You've been in this long, you haven't deployed?" He goes, "Well, no, I haven't deployed, but kinda." And then he was explaining that he had an assignment that lasted for 6 years, but he couldn't tell me anything more about that. I was like, "I just bummed you a cigarette, man. You're not going to tell me about Area 51? He goes, "No. Not even allowed to fucking speak about it," so I was kind of bummed out.
News station asking him if he really did believe any of these alien theories, but he just told her personally that he thought it was some kind of specialized testing facility for, conventional military technology. That the truth was nobody outside the base knew for sure, and that was what made it so fascinating. And in the absence of answers, the triangle at Area 51 just continues to remain a mystery. In April of 2025, a dedicated radio enthusiast named Mikkel sat in his small apartment on the outskirts of Helsinki, Finland. He was surrounded by sophisticated radio equipment, headphones around his neck, as he monitored a specific shortwave frequency that had captured his attention for years. This frequency, broadcasting at 4,625 kilohertz, was home to what many called the buzzer, which is this mysterious Russian radio station that had been continuously broadcasting a monotonous buzzing sound since around 1975. Mikkel was part of an international community of radio hobbyists who had been monitoring this station for decades, and they all had their own theories about what it was, but none of them could say for certain what its true purpose was. And that's really what made it so fascinating. As Mikkel adjusted his equipment and prepared his morning coffee, he really had no idea that he was about to witness something extremely rare, something that would set off alarms among intelligence agencies worldwide. The buzzer had started during the height of the Cold War back in 1975. It was a simple setup, a shortwave radio station somewhere in Russia that just broadcast this odd buzzing sound 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The sound itself was distinct, like someone holding down a button, creating this persistent buzz pattern that never stopped. But what made the station particularly mysterious was that it continued broadcasting to the fall of the Soviet Union, through multiple Russian presidents, through technological revolutions, just constantly going. And occasionally, very rarely, the buzzing would stop and a human voice would read off a series of names and numbers in Russian, and then the buzzing would resume. Over the years, the station gained a nickname, the Doomsday Station, and nobody knew exactly why it existed, but many believed it had something to do with the Russian military, possibly even with their nuclear command structure. Some theorized it might be part of Russia's dead hand system, which is this semi-automated nuclear retaliation mechanism that would activate if Russian leadership were incapacitated in a first strike. Well, after a couple hours of listening to the unchanging buzzing sound that morning, Mikhail got up to refill his coffee. He had been monitoring the station for years, documenting every single deviation from its normal pattern. The community of listeners he belonged to believed that when the station did change its pattern, it meant something significant was happening, or at least about to happen. And that's exactly what occurred when Mikhail returned to his equipment. He nearly spilled his coffee when he heard a male voice speaking in Russian over the buzzing sound. The voice began reciting what listeners had come to recognize as a call sign, a series of Russian names. Then came another sign. And then the voice stopped, the buzzing resumed. He immediately posted the transmission in the online forum where all of them shared their findings, and within only minutes, others confirmed they had heard the same thing. Now this was pretty significant, as voice transmissions were extremely rare, happening maybe once or twice a year at most. However, just a few hours after, the buzzing was interrupted again. The same call sign repeated. Multiple transmissions in one day was exceptionally rare. The forum was buzzing with activity, with listeners around the world sharing recordings and speculating about what it could mean. But it didn't stop there. A third transmission occurred with the number group 70082 and another unique call sign. And in all of his years of monitoring, he had never heard of 3 voice transmissions in a single day. And just as the day was coming to an end, you guessed it, a fourth and final voice message interrupted the buzzing. The same initial call sign appeared once more. After that, the station returned to its standard buzzing pattern. And 4 separate transmissions in a single 24-hour period is pretty much unheard of. All Mikhail could do was just sit back in his chair, remove his headphones, and just stare at his equipment, thinking about what all this meant, because this was far from normal. In the past, voice transmissions from the buzzer had sometimes coincided with Russian military activities or significant political events. This suggested something major was happening, or about to happen. Within hours, news began circulating in intelligence circles. Amateur monitors like Mikhail weren't the only ones paying attention. Within a day or so, he noticed that, just in the online chatter and in his community, that there had apparently been reports of heightened military readiness in several countries. Nobody knew exactly what the transmissions meant. Whatever the buzzer was communicating that day was clearly important. The clustering of 4 messages in 24 hours represented an extremely unusual deviation from its decades-long pattern. Unfortunately, because this happened so recently, we really have no idea what this means or what could be coming. On the morning of July 27, 1989, a unit of Soviet soldiers were engaged in a routine training mission deep in the Siberian wilderness. The air was crisp and pretty cold, despite it being summer, and the soldiers moved through the dense forest with practiced precision. At this point, they were about halfway through their scheduled exercises when one of the men, who was a young sergeant named Dmitri, looked up at the sky and froze. Hovering there above the trees was what he could only describe as this metallic disc. But it didn't make a sound at all, and it just kind of glided through the air, which was strange for any aircraft. And Dmitri knew this, and so he immediately alerted his commanding officer, a captain named Yuri Grigorovich, who ordered the entire unit to halt their exercises. And so for several minutes, the 25 soldiers just stood there watching this strange craft in the sky, wondering what it could be. And the entire time it just performed these strange, impossible maneuvers. It would accelerate rapidly and then just stop on a dime before changing direction at sharp angles that would clearly kill any human pilot due to the G-forces involved. And at this point, Captain Grigorovich was unsure how to proceed, because this was clearly no American spy plane or experimental aircraft he'd ever been briefed on. And after watching for a while and observing the object for probably about 15 or so minutes, he made a decision that he was sure would work. He then ordered his unit's missile operator to prepare their portable surface-to-air launcher. Now, the missile operator, Alexei, questioned the order initially, asking if they shouldn't first report the sighting to headquarters, but Captain Grigorovich was very adamant that they needed to do this, and they had been trained to respond to all airspace violations, and whatever this was, it definitely was not authorized to be in Soviet airspace. So, Alexei, following orders, positioned the launcher on his shoulder, while 2 other soldiers helped stabilize it. He locked onto his craft, which was now hovering almost stationary about 400 meters above the tree line. When Captain Grigorovich gave the command, he fired. The missile streaked upward with a trail of smoke, and to everyone's surprise, it made direct contact. There was a bright flash, and the object began to spiral downward, eventually crashing about 300 meters from their position. Black smoke billowed up from behind the trees where it had gone down, so the soldiers looked at each other, just stunned, and Captain Grigorovich ordered them to approach the crash site. As they advanced through the trees toward the smoke, none of them had any idea what they might find, but certainly none expected it to be top secret technology from America or another enemy country. When they finally reached the crash site, they found this metallic craft that was partially embedded in the earth. From what they could see, it was disc-shaped, approximately 15 or so meters in diameter, and they couldn't see any visible windows or doors, and the hole had this strange, almost, it was weird, it was a liquid-like sheen to it, despite being solid. As they formed a perimeter around the crashed object, a section of the craft's side seemed to almost melt away, creating this opening. And immediately, being on high alert, they raised their weapons, unsure who or what might come out. And from the darkness of the interior, 5 small figures emerged. And everybody was shocked because these were unlike anything they'd ever seen. Standing approximately 1.2 meters tall, they had disproportionately large heads and these enormous black eyes that wrapped around the sides of their faces, and they could see that their skin was this pale gray color, and their faces lacked features. All they had was these small slits for noses and mouths. Their bodies, as well, were thin and long and frail with these delicate fingers.
Golden swag. There's 2 keys. I got one of the keys. The other one is like 203 or something like that. I don't remember. 303. Oh, it is. Yeah, 303. Alright, so 303 and trailer park portable cabin. What was that key I just got? Alright. So we just need 303. That key is not worth 40,000 rupees, dude. What the fuck is that? Ah. Dope, 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 dope. I always get these cases like mixed up between each other. Oh, God. I think we're gonna call it there. I wanted to go in for another raid. It's already 6:30 in the morning though. Probably gotta chill out for a little bit and maybe an hour and hit the hay. The sun's already coming out. I got work here in a little bit, so I'm gonna call it there. We'll probably get the stream back up after I get off work tomorrow, so it just won't be as late as today. Because I think we pulled up the stream a little after 3 a.m. We'll probably pull up right around midnight or 1 or so. Do want to go do some running after I get off work tomorrow too. But yeah, we'll call it there. We'll say goodbye to YouTube first this time.